Try it again with the microphone on. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our virtual wine tasting. We're here live from our studios in Table 2, ready to taste some all-America wines and some all-America cheeses. Hopefully you like that little video of the cheese-making process. The first cheese we're going to hit is this Grafton Cheddar. And I thought, we've been talking a little bit about cheese making, the cheddaring process we've referenced several times over the last couple of weeks, I guess. And so in that video, hopefully you saw them, stacking the slabs, flipping them, chopping the curds up, pressing them, and that's kind of basically the cheddaring process. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about the Grafton cheese in a bit. But in the meantime, hey, welcome.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks again for being with us on a Friday night at Vintage Wine Cellars. Hard to believe it's Memorial Day weekend, but it is. So we have enjoyed seeing everyone and staying in touch with everyone for the last few months. And we're going to keep doing it like this so that we can stay in touch with everyone. We are loving doing these. It's been a great learning experience, an experiment and experience for us. And we like this, usually 3 wines, and everybody's saying that's plenty of wine. We did 4 little half bottles last week, which was kind of cool. But anyway, Jamie and Jimmy are here, and Tracy's behind the camera, and she can kind of keep an eye on any questions you all might have. So we wanted to do all American wines tonight, and we decided we'd kind of stay in California, not for any reason, but we've already kind of dabbled in Oregon a bit, and we might do a dedicated thing to Oregon or Pinots coming up pretty quickly. And then Washington State, we thought about too, but and then also Virginia, but we decided we would stick with California. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do Sonoma, we're going to do Napa, and we're going to do the south central coast of Paso Robles.
Yep. So we're all over California. So it'll be a good snapshot of 3 interesting wines and 3 wines that we didn't do like a big American style Chardonnay. But this, I think the other theme that we were after was, we know it's Memorial Day, it's a long weekend, weather's getting warmer, probably going to be doing some cookouts. So the wines that we went to, like this Truchard that we're starting with, we in part picked because we thought they would be great cookout wines. They'd be great wines to kind of enjoy as the weather gets warmer, especially this one. We've got this one nice and cool, and it is darn tasty.
Yes, it is. So, like Jamie said, it's not Chardonnay, but it has the texture of Chardonnay, but it has a totally different flavor profile. One of the last events we did at the store here where we could sit and kind of be close to everyone, we had Anthony Truchard here and very early in March, very early in March, and on a Monday night. And we had a great night in the tasting area, and we tried his family's wines. His family, they're still, they own their winery outright. They own a lot of land. His father started buying land in Carneros in the 1970s. His father was a physician, and so they own 432 acres of vines. That is a lot.
That's a lot.
They sell a lot of it to other wineries, and then they produce a fair amount for their under their own label. So almost all of their wines say on the back of the label, grown, produced, and bottled. That means they're doing everything from cradle to grave. And they do traditional things like Chardonnay, Cabernet, which we tasted, but they also do a few unusual things like this wine called Roussanne. Roussanne is a French varietal that's grown in the southeast part of the country. It's a blending grape with Marsanne and other things that are done down in the area of the Rhone and Avignon. So it's bright, it's ripe, it's round. Like I said, it's got a great nose. It's a great, Jimmy was saying, is this a cocktail wine or is this a food wine? Well, yes.
Yeah, I think it's both.
It's both.
It's both. And as you know, speaking of the food and the cheese, I know we showed the Grafton first. My suggestion is that the Grafton probably is going to go really well with this. Although we'll warn you in advance, all of these cheeses was probably going to taste pretty good with any of these wines. So don't be afraid to save some and kind of come back, revisit as you go, or taste. But definitely the Grafton Cheddar will be nice with this.
I think our loyal customers have probably found that out in previous episodes. That all the cheeses go with every wine, but particularly it's important today.
Yeah, a little more interchangeable today than I think than maybe on some of the pairings that we've done. So we just, but I think this is a good match. I think the cheddar is really delicious. It comes in a fairly modest sized block, so we've cut it off. I think a 10 or 15 pound block, and it's to me it had a really kind of creamy but subtle style to it. So if you like really sharp cheddar, I know the Black Diamond company out of Canada does a really sharp, much more tangy cheddar. This to me was more rich, but also more rounded. I don't know if that's, it probably tells you why in the video.
The New England style cheddar tends to be butterier. They tend to go for a butterier note and a butterier finish. And this one's nice. Grafton Village, since I know we're hopping around, but since we're talking about the cheese, Grafton Village is basically started as a farmers co-op in like the late 1890s. And there's a lot of dairy farms in Vermont. The farmers began to kind of bring together their excess milk and bring it together and make cheese out of it, because at the time there wasn't great refrigeration. So if you had extra milk, there wasn't much you could do with it other than make cheese. And so over the years, it's grown. It's still very much a cooperative. It's still, even though it's a really large cheese company these days, they do a lot of handcrafted cheeses, and they do a lot of production of cheddar and a couple of these other ones. This one's nice because it's a 2-year aged, which is, again, a lot of times you get cheddar at the store. It's relatively quick. It's probably like 90 days old, right. But 2 years cave aging it gives it a little bit of that nutty, that sharp tang, and a little bit of that nutty finish. And as they get even older, they'll pick up some of those tyrosine crystals that you'll get inside of them, where you get the little crunchy bits. This one doesn't, even at 2 years, it doesn't really have too much crunch, but it definitely has a good nutty, buttery finish that's mighty tasty. I think it goes good with what I'm getting out of the wine, which is the earthiness. There might even be, you might say there's a hazelnut-ish note in this, because there is it's not quite almond, but it is kind of a nutty note.
And it has a ripeness to it. And first I thought, it's kind of got a floralness to it. Not really, though. It's more a little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of toastiness to it almost.
Yeah, and I want to say buttery, but I don't want to confuse people with like buttery, as you would say, as Chardonnay. It's just got maybe an unctuousness that the mouth feel is nice and dense. It finishes really nicely.
Yeah. So this is a wine, if you're trying to blindfold it, you could conceive it could be red, like a Pinot. It's got that much kind of feel in the mouth, and it's kind of got a fleshiness to it. That's usually a red wine term, but I think this almost does in a way. Right. So I think a white wine person who likes rich Chardonnays, oaky, buttery, whatever they might be, or someone who even maybe prefers something a little lighter, a little more not so barrel aged, I think would enjoy this. So I think this would kind of cover a huge cross section of people's taste in white wine.
I think with all the variety of Chardonnay out there,
we probably can't hear you because you're behind the microphone.
You can't hear me?
No, I don't think so.
Probably not. Come over here.
Jimmy's got something to say, but while he's coming around to join us at the table,
he's directing from behind.
One of the other aspects of this, I think, with Truchard this was a bit of a passion project for them as well, because I think they had gone in and, I can't remember the story. Did they replant? They made a specific decision to invest in Roussanne and to invest in this grape. And in Carneros, which is not really, you could probably make more money selling Chardonnay than you could selling Roussanne, but they kind of specifically went after it as a passion project and say we want to grow some Roussanne on our vineyard.
So this is in Napa Valley, but it's the winery is, but the most of the vines are a little bit further to the west in the Carneros region. So Carneros is at the top of San Francisco Bay, and it's a huge area, and it's split between a Sonoma side and a Napa side, and so the Truchards, all their vineyards are on the Napa side, and yes, they did make a decision to kind of do some unusual things. They do a blend that has a little bit of Nebbiolo grapes in it, so. I guess, Mr. Truchard was kind of a tinkerer, and I think maybe had some guidance as far as, I think the land there, you can do a lot of different things, and they decided to I think, do some unusual wines like this. And it's really, really delicious. They do Syrah, which is really delicious. The Pinot grows very well in Carneros, and so does Chardonnay. But we've done a lot of weird whites. I know y'all have been very good troopers about.
And we've got more coming next week.
That ain't nothing.
Yeah. Wait till you see next week. So we just know that everybody kind of Chardonnay is easy and accessible, and maybe you have already. It's an area that you already have your comfort zone in. So we decided we'd be doing some of these more unusual whites, French whites, made from Chenin Blanc and Burgundy, and we've done some funny little blends from Australia and New Zealand. But anyway, we decided, well, let's keep it going, and we'll do this totally unusual wine. Some other wineries down on the Central Coast would probably do a wine like this, but not many.
And what I was trying to say behind the camera there was that I want you guys to notice when we're saying terms like full-bodied or light-bodied, this is definitely in that full-bodied scale of wine. You put it in your mouth, it fills up your palate fairly quickly. You swirl it around, it gives you nutty notes, it gives you buttery notes, it gives you all these things that a full-bodied white wine will give you. And so when we're saying full-bodied, this is what we're talking about, is that your mouth is totally involved with this. This is not like the tartness of a Sauvignon Blanc or the tartness of some lighter-bodied wines. This is what we mean by full-bodied, and this is a great example of full-bodied, but not Chardonnay. It's got different traits, so it's not hitting your palate. But as I was also saying, is that the Chardonnay market these days is so varied that you're not really sure exactly what you're going to get when you go to that Publix and you're picking and the price range is not going to save you sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes the winemakers are taking shortcuts trying to make a creamy, buttery wine for $10 and not quite getting all the nuances of it. And sometimes they're trying to be more of a crisp, clean kind of Chardonnay. And it makes for a lot of confusion, I think, when you're in that grocery store and you're looking at the shelf and they're not saying anything to you. So what do? You grab the bottle and you turn it to the back, and the back is supposed to be telling you exactly what you're going to experience with this wine. And I think sometimes it does a good job, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it says buttery oaky, and you put it in your mouth, and you're not getting that buttery oaky experience. And sometimes, like this, it doesn't tell you of what you're going to have, but this is definitely in that full-bodied. So let's call this a full-bodied white rather than
There you go.
a Chardonnay.
Right,
Yeah.
a rich textured white.
Although I'm looking at the notes on the winemaking, and this might explain some of the richness. So it was whole clustered pressed and fermented in French oak barrels. So it was fermented in barrels.
Oh, wow.
20% of those barrels were new during fermentation. So they actually ferment it in the barrel. They left it on the barrel sur lie, which means they left the yeast in there for 6 months. And they stirred it, this batonnage where they stir the lees, which gives it some yeasty, bready notes. They allowed it to go partial malolactic, so 30% complete, so it converted some of that milky acid, or some of that lactic acid to the more milky acid, which gives it some richness. And so a lot of those techniques are Chardonnay techniques. I mean, you can get a lot of Landmark is one of my personal favorite that does a barrel-aged Chardonnay, a lot of batonnage. It gets a really rich Chardonnay character. So, they're treating these grapes with a lot of respect and labor to get it like this.
And this is how winemakers really alternate the product that they're bringing to market. There is a conscious decision to say, okay, we're going to take 60% of our Roussanne or our Chardonnay, and we're going to put it in new French oak, and that is a very planned, expensive, that's not cheap, a way to change what's going to happen with your taste or your experience with the Chardonnay or with the Roussanne.
Yep.
And these are all calculated decisions that these winemakers are making. And it's one of the things when you go down, if you're tasting a white wine, a Chardonnay in a restaurant or a Chardonnay at home, and wow, this has got some oakiness, it's got some butter in this, you can go down a checklist of these different tricks or methods that these winemakers are using. Are they using leaving the yeast in the barrels?
Yep.
Are they using new barrels? Are they using old barrels? These are all things that will change the grape juice of Chardonnay grapes or of Roussanne grapes, and it will make them taste different ways. And that's all what winemaking is about,
Yep.
especially in white wine.
Yeah, and this one's really good.
Yep.
I mean, just a note or two on Roussanne. I know there's usually some questions about the grape. Roussanne is another one of these kind of indigenous grapes from the south of France in the Rhone. It's one that kind of sprouted up probably either through propagation before there were records, or again all wine grapes are the same species. They're all Vitis vinifera. But as they move around and as they grow and as they breed with other grapes in the wild, they kind of change and morph. And this one in particular started out of the Savoie of France, where it's actually called Bergeron, and you can still get Bergeron wine. It's Roussanne. Roussanne's got like 20 different names because it's been spread around quite a bit, and every area kind of picked it up and kind of gave it its own name or thought it was a different grape. When it came to America, actually, Roussanne was originally smuggled into America in a suitcase by the guys from Bonnie Doon. I can't remember his name.
Randall
Yeah, there you go. Randall brought it in a suitcase, which was totally illegal. You're supposed to quarantine these vines whenever you bring them in. They're supposed to be grown. They're supposed to be tested. He didn't do any of that. And he started selling, but at the time he thought it was Viognier. And he started selling it as Viognier. No, I got this wrong. He thought it was Roussanne and started selling it as Roussanne. People were buying it as Roussanne, and then a French winemaker came and saw some of it and said, that looks a lot like Viognier. And in fact, they did do some DNA testing and realized that it was not Roussanne, it was Viognier. So our first controversy of the night was around Roussanne and around its smuggling and its whether or not it was Viognier or not. So eventually they figured that out. UC Davis figured out what to do.
What a great mystery to start on.
There you go.
Tracy, somebody have a question?
Yeah, why is it so yellow?
Well, the question was, why is it so yellow? It's 2017, which is current release. There's a lot of white wines out now that are 2018, and next week we're going to have a white wine that's made in the Western world. It's 2019. So I think it's probably just the characteristics of the grape itself is that it's in its original spot in southeast France in the Rhone Valley, those white wines are round and soft and rich and should be drunk within a year or two of its life. So I don't know if you want to put this away in your cellar for 10 years because it doesn't have a lot of acidity to it even right now. I think they probably through techniques. I didn't realize this was barrel fermented. I mean, most all white wine is, at least in volume white wine, is is fermented in stainless steel,
yeah.
which helps you control lots of things. And so it keeps the wine clean and lean, and it keeps the wine technically, correct as far as acidities and, everything that goes along with it. So I think they just designed it to be ripe to start with, and I think the color probably reflects that.
I mean, you can see in the picture that Roussanne does have a bit of a brown blush, especially when it's really white. The skins do have some color, but it's not a pink color, it's not a red color. It is, kind of tending more towards yellow. So it's going to pick up some of that during the winemaking process, and especially if if there's any skin contact, it's going to pick up that color and carry it through.
And I think this is one of those learning moments about if you ever see a Roussanne and you pour it in your glass and it's got a rich yellow color, that's correct. That is what it should be doing as a grape variety. But you can get into a little bit of trouble if you've got some white wines, especially Chardonnay, that you've squirreled away for a little too long, 5 years, 6 years, that they start to really start to ripen. And as they do this, they will kind of start showing their age by getting a darker yellow, and then eventually a darker brown. Tints will start to show up in there, and that's a sign of aging. And generally, white wines don't last as long as red. So if somebody tells you they have a great Chardonnay for you to try that's from 1995, you should tell them to enjoy it on their own.
Right. And speaking of white wines not lasting as long,
yes.
I think
so we're going to move on to our
some red
wines.
I think so.
Might as well. As we close out, I think the tasting notes came from the winemaker. I don't know that I had ratings on this vintage, but previous vintage of this has been kind of a 92, 93 point wine. It's gotten a couple of Editor's Choice Awards, so it's got a good pedigree. I'm not sure what this year's vintage is. And this is another 92 point. We're switching glasses.
Well, I think we're going to go to the big glasses like we do. Yeah, we know.
Everybody should go to the big glasses. So while we're pouring here, this is another question. One of the things we were talking about was, should we do a tasting that focuses on stemware? And so one of the thoughts that we had was we've done some tastings commercially, or we've done some tastings with the Riedel family, where they bring a couple of different stems and allow you to or basically walk you through what it's like to taste a wine out of a Pinot glass, out of a Cab glass, out of a Syrah glass. So one of the thoughts that we had, and we'd love some feedback, is would you be interested in doing a tasting that was really focused on the stemware? But here would be the catch. As part of it, we're looking at whether or not we can get some good prices on some Riedel stems, so that we could actually have kind of all be tasting out of the same glasses. We'd probably have like a Syrah glass, a Pinot glass, and a Cab glass. So give that some thought as you're contemplating your switch of stemware from your white wine glass to your red wine glass, as to whether or not you'd be interested in doing a deep dive in what glass does to it.
And we're talking to the Riedel people because they do have tasting kits and another time we've done several of them here at the store. But we're kind of talking to them now to see what the updated version of that is, or we may just select, 2 or 3 size glasses and focus glasses to match with wines, and we'll just do it, by the stem. So we're still putting that together. But yes, let us know what you think. If you are thinking, well, I could use a few extra stems of Riedel around the house, around the kitchen, then we have to order them ahead of time. The Riedel people are great, but they they like for everything to be done, kind of on
that'll be a month or so.
Yeah,
away,
we made that may be a midsummer thing. So, but let us know what you think if you're ready to do a Riedel focused event. So
this one though.
Wow. So we were in Napa, and now we are going up north and west a bit, and we're going to go to Sonoma, and we're going to try a true American wine, and that is Zinfandel. Zinfandel is not grown anywhere else in the world and produced anywhere else in the world. There's some wines we're going to talk about that are closely aligned to them through DNA and through history, but not. There's nothing else that's labeled Zinfandel, I think, in the wine drinking world today. So you have to really love this. This is, wow, what a great nose this has.
This has got a great nose.
This is, brambly and smoky and earthy. It's the first time we've kind of we've had this bottle open for about 30, 45 minutes. We chilled it, didn't chill it, but we cooled it down a bit. And
which, speaking of smoky, that's one of the reasons we paired. We're suggesting the smoky blue with it, which is a phenomenal cheese. That's really great with this wine. Sorry, we're just going to sit here and eat at you for a minute.
Everybody's been telling us, hey, why don't you tasting the cheese? So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, the reason is we can't talk with our mouth full.
Right.
That's
so, wow. That blue has a tanginess to it, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
That's good. We'll talk more about that. But
okay.
Quivera, this winery, this is a great winery. And actually, it's kind of a personal favorite. We've been there several times. They're in Dry Creek. They're right outside of Healdsburg. So if you've been to,
A couple people said it looked like it's out of focus, but I don't see it. Somebody may be calling to tell us.
Okay.
Is it
Picture is
I don't know. It doesn't look to me.
Sorry, we're getting
here,
pictures or the slides or both. Okay. Well,
where it could just be some buffering. I think that looked like Patty.
There's also storms around. People
Yeah,
hailing and stuff.
I think it may be some buffering happening on the internet that might be causing some fuzziness, because it looks good. It looks good here, both on what we're sending out and what we're getting back.
And the weather is really, I know it's storming here, and it's, so that might be an issue with if we can hear the thunder. So
other people are saying it's fine.
Okay.
Good. Okay, good. So anyway, Quivera, up north of Dry Creek Valley. If you ever go to Sonoma Valley, this is definitely. First, you should plan on doing a Dry Creek day. Dry Creek is at the far north of the Sonoma Valley. It's not that far of a drive, but it is one of those that you kind of want to. You don't want to be bopping back and forth from Sonoma to Dry Creek. You want to drive up there, spend the day. There's a lot of great wineries. Ridge is up there. Mazzacco is up there. Depending on where you go, there's some. You'll go up. On your way, you'll pass a lot of the great Pinot places like Rocchioli and William Sellium. Ferrari Carano's up there. But anyway, as you go up through Dry Creek, it will get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. The Dry Creek area is a lot warmer than the southern part of the Russian River Valley, where down in Russian River they're growing Pinot. Yeah. Up here, you start seeing way more Zinfandel. You start seeing Spanish varietals, Italian varietals. People are growing Barbera and Nebbiolo, and there's all sorts of stuff going on up here. It's a little cooler right on the river where the Dry Creek goes through, so you still, like Quivera, they make a Sauvignon Blanc that is a consistent award winner, like a 93-point Sauvignon Blanc. But the vineyard that is kind of right down near the Dry Creek area, and where it gets a little cooler there. So there's a bigger view of all of their properties and all their vineyards. But one of their big flagships is their Zinfandel. And again, Dry Creek is the perfect area for Zinfandel. This is my favorite area for Zinfandel. And these are, they're great people. Again, this is another family-owned winery. The current owners purchased it from another family like 2006, and they've done a lot to kind of improve it, modernize it, and bring it along. So
this is a really classic, I think, Sonoma Zin. Zinfandel doesn't grow everywhere, though, in the state. It certainly is grown in the Central Valley, and a lot of table wines are made from Zinfandel. But in the other fine wine regions of California, it grows very well in Sonoma. But after that, I think you've got to go almost down south to like Paso and some other places. Napa is not really Zinfandel country, and Monterey is not. So you've got to get a hot place. Sonoma is a very interesting place. Sonoma is one of those areas where you can grow a lot of different things, as Jamie said. And I think they've kind of figured out by attrition and Mother Nature that, Napa Valley really is Cabernet and Merlot and Chardonnay country. Chardonnay grows very well in Sonoma also, but when you go to reds, with the exception of like Alexander Valley, it's Zinfandel country and it's Pinot country. So Zinfandel there's a lot of Zinfandel that's grown in Lodi, which is this area to the northeast. Those are much different style than this is. This is got all the zestiness and that you want in a Zinfandel, but it's not hugely extracted, which is where a lot of the Lodi, and it's not so fruit driven that some people like as bold a fruit as you can get.
This one's nice. It's got a lot more balance. It's got good acidity. It's got good fruit, not overwhelming. I mean, one of the things it's super in balance, and that's one of the things I've found. I used to be a massive Zinfandel fan. I loved a big Zin. But what I started to find is they were getting more and more alcohol-y. You'd be drinking these 16%, 16.5% fruit bombs. They would be super fruity. If you aged them for more than a year, I mean, the fumes from the alcohol would just pour off of them and knock you out in the glass. And so I got off of them for quite a while. But lately, I think people have started to come around. And, I'm looking at the Zinfandel rack over here that's got folks like Klein and Frog's Leap. And I see some of the ones like Hartford that probably went towards that fruit bomby style who have now backed off of it. And so the whole shelf there is gotten a little more elegant and a little more maybe influence from the Italians and like the Primitivo wines that they've been doing. But
and to quote a big name like that, Rombauer has been a kind of a chameleon in this Zinfandel market. They were really known as a kind of fruit forward, late harvest kind of style back in the 2000s, and then they went through a drying out period. They've gone back to this kind of fruit forward kind of style, to where when you taste them, you'll get a lot of the fruit in front of this balance. Here, I think the tannins are really showing very well with this wine. I think this is showing a lot more ageability. The tannins will make this wine live, and so what you're seeing here is the balance of tannins and fruit, whereas some people that make Zinfandel are really going for that, more of that market where the fruit is really kind of in the forward, in the front of it. So this is much more of a complex, long-lived wine than.
For me, for warmer weather, I'm looking for something with this acid in it. For cookout food, burgers, barbecue, I'm looking for something with this fruit in it. And I think this is a sweet spot.
And this is 2016, which is Quivera's current release, or at least it is here in Florida. And I think that helps kind of already soften it, because there's a lot of Zinfandels on the market now are 17 and even 2018. And you can drink Zinfandel young, but I do think that I was looking for the alcohol content on it, 14.5. So
normal.
Yeah, that's normal now. So, but Zinfandel used to be 1 or 2 percentages higher than your Cabs and your Merlot and everything else. So they're just right in the groove now.
In the sweet spot.
So
Zinfandel itself, the grape. David mentioned the American grape. Oh, did we have a question?
Yes. What's the right temperature for serving Zin?
What question was, what's the right temperature for serving Zin? I think wine in general is best just below room temperature, and room temperature being like 72. So if I have a wine that's like at 70, 68, to me, that's perfect.
This could even, I think Zinfandel, because it's so ripe and round, it could probably take even a little bit more of its chill. At least this Zinfandel could. So I think we chilled it a little bit more than we, might typically. But I think...
and for cookouts especially, I mean, there's nothing wrong with throwing this in the ice bucket.
Yeah. Right.
Because...
15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, and kind of knocking the heat off of it, and then pouring it in your glass. It'll certainly warm up in your glass, or get yourself one of those nice Hydro Flask wine tumblers.
And I think one of the good rules is that 20 minutes in the refrigerator when you get home. It's enough to give that wine, like Jamie was talking about 68 degrees. You just want to get a notable, you don't want that heat to involve your evaluation of the wine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in Europe, I think they'd often say put the glass in the refrigerator, don't put the bottle in the refrigerator.
Okay. Well, that's what we did too tonight.
But they aren't dealing with Florida heat and humidity, so
right.
So I think we put the glass and the bottle in the fridge.
Tracy.
Other than cookout food, what other food would you pair that with?
Zinfandel is a good meat wine. One that's light like this. I think you could any kind of pork with fruit sauces, or like pork with apple. I think anything with a little bit of smoke or sear on it would be pretty good.
Yes.
Tracy's
fairly food friendly,
Yeah.
but it is kind of, I'd say, meat driven more so than not. But anything that's like heavily marinated or sauced, I think you could do it, even if that's white meat.
Anything in your direction towards teriyaki or barbecue.
Exactly.
I wouldn't go towards like lemon sauces or
right. That might clash. But
when we're talking
even if
about
it's white meat,
barbecue sauces, we're talking about the thicker Carolina base.
Yeah. Something that's got some,
tomatoey.
It's got tomatoes. It's got sugar in there.
Yeah.
And that sugar's going to draw out the fruitiness of the Zinfandel, which is always a great natural match, I think, with this. Yeah. But you could definitely go with a ribeye steak with this, and it's going to show wonderfully with it.
There you go. So the Zinfandel grape itself is one, David mentioned that it was America's grape, and I think that's a little bit of our second controversy of the night. Zinfandel was really thought to be an American varietal. They thought, this must have been like a native grape almost. It must have come over from Europe and taken hold in California so well that it's only America has Zinfandel. Well, what they found is actually Zinfandel is one of the oldest grapes around, or at least it's descended from some of the oldest grapes around. And its original home was in Croatia. And so the history of winemaking, starts kind of 6,000 BCE. That's in this area, the Caucasus Mountains, kind of in that Eastern Europe around Croatia, up and down the rivers there. And over the years, what they figured out is that Zinfandel migrated from the area of Croatia kind of up into the heel of Italy. And then what happened from there is that it moved into Austria, because at the time the Habsburg dynasty, who was an Austrian family, ruled a lot of the Italy, which was the Dalmatians at the time. If you remember, all your wine histories is all ancient Europe stuff. But the Habsburg took it to Austria, and it ended up in a Austrian vineyard, or a garden, and a people who sell plants. That person. Nursery. Thank you. And from there, it was actually sold into New York. It came over into New York onto Long Island. There were some guys that they were selling it as it was called Black St. Peter's. It was called the Black Zinfandel of Hungary. It had a couple of different names that were related to Zinfandel, and then eventually it kind of worked its way over to California and took hold. And for a while, it was really widely planted, like the most widely planted grape in California, in part because it ripens really early. It's pretty vigorous, so they were actually, in some cases, using it as a table grape, using it as a raisin grape. using it kind of in
Lots
that
of
capacity.
sweetness in the
Lots of sweetness, easy to grow, love the heat. And then, eventually through the years, as it got bigger and bigger, as they started looking more and more at the DNA, they were able to kind of trace back this story and this heritage. And they actually, they found, when they found the original source, it was in some old lady's garden and there were only 9 vines left. But what they found was when they took the DNA of that, they said, that is Zinfandel. So in Italy, again, if you remember the story, it kind of went from Croatia into Italy. It kept going in Italy as well, but over time they started calling it Primitivo. And they were thought to be different grapes, Primitivo and Zinfandel. Now everybody's pretty much decided that it is in fact the same grape. It's just a different clone, and you've heard us talk about clones in California. But it's basically the same grape, but it has diverged a bit, and now those divergences have been kind of codified by cloning. So if you go to Italy and you get a Primitivo, it's pretty much Zinfandel. It's just kind of that Zinfandel from Italy. And now they're bringing the Primitivo clones over and they're growing them in California because they find that Primitivo actually ripens even earlier than Zinfandel, has a little bit more acid, a little less fruit. It lets them make maybe a little bit of a crisper wine than they would have otherwise. So a lot of history around Zinfandel. Is one of the oldest grapes in the winemaking.
And you'll find this occurring a lot in the wine world. Is that you'll find an area that wants to make a name for itself as being a legitimate grape growing area. So they pick a grape variety that does very well in the microclimate that is there. And we found that in California, they've made Zinfandel as their unique flagship. Is that this is the grape that is defined by only growing in California, I would say, in the market. So if you went to France or you went to Italy and said, well, we will have Zinfandels in California, they really wouldn't know what you're talking about.
No.
They would be more saying, what do you like again? And is it Corvina or is it Barbera? And we're saying, no, it's Zinfandel. And we want everybody to understand what that is, and it's not very... It doesn't translate very well once you get out of America.
Yep.
But it's a truly American flagship, and the grape that we claim to produce on our own.
And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's polarizing, but either you love Zinfandels and don't mind drinking them at any time, or you don't care for them at all. For a lot of folks, they're too fruit driven, they're too earthy, they're too brambly. So we get a lot of people when we ask, hey, how about a Zinfandel? We get an immediate reaction usually. It's usually either, oh yeah, that'd be great, or no, let me do something else. Syrah kind of has that same kind of challenge sometimes. So I think we all have our Cabernet palates, and it's hard to steer away from them. But I do find Zinfandel to be, although it's purely American. And it's really delicious. Not everyone loves it. But
yeah, one thing that is purely American is white Zinfandel. We were the only ones that could come up with that.
And to bore you just for like 30 seconds, white Zinfandel came about because there was a overproduction of red Zinfandel in the 70s. It fell out of favor. It's too high in alcohol, too harsh, and so the growers and the wineries are like, "What are we going to do with all this Zinfandel?" You tinker a little bit with the fermentation.
Drain off the juice.
Because the red wine gets its color by skin. So you take those skins out a little earlier. You get pink wine. You do a little shaking, a little tenderize them, and then you've got a whole new generation of wine drinkers.
You have a question.
Yep.
So how prevalent is Hungarian oak, and is it becoming more common?
Hungarian oak is cheaper. Repeating the question, the question was how common is Hungarian oak, and is it becoming more prevalent? the big reason is Hungarian oak. The Hungarian forests are really close to the French forest. They're kind of on the same parallel. They're about the same age. They're kind of the same species of tree, and it's cheaper. French oak is super expensive.
Really expensive.
So Hungarian oak is becoming more and more popular if you're trying to hit a certain price point, because you can get a barrel that has really probably like 90% of the characteristics of a French oak barrel. And they do tend to be that style. It's the same species of tree or the same kind of subspecies. American oak is just kind of a slightly different, again, if you talk about clones, it's kind of a slightly different clone of oak than the French one. It tends to grow a little faster in America. But in Hungary, it's kind of the same tree. The forests are the same age. But you can get it cheaper. And, of course, now the French cooperages are going into those Hungarian forests and buying it up and treating the wood in the same way. Because I think that was one of the other differences, is that French wood, they tend to treat with a little more, they aged it a little longer, they treated it with a little more care than they did Hungary. But now the French coopers are in there, and they're making a lot more Hungarian barrels. So I don't know. I see a lot more in wines like this that are really reasonably priced, but like really super well made. You start seeing a lot of Hungarian oak. Yeah. And then you see a lot of, if you take the winery tour and they walk you through the cellar, what you'll see is this big wall of French oak, and then right behind it will be Hungarian barrels up the wazoo.
Yeah, lots of that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're switching over to our Vina Robles Cabernet Sauvignon Paso Robles. Again, for your cheese, if you haven't already hit it, this BellaVitano from Sartori. I guess we didn't really talk about that. Let me go back real quick and hit this Smokey Blue real quick, just to tell you a little bit about Rogue Creamery. Again, all three of these creameries are really co-op style creameries, or they had their roots in co-ops, meaning they're collectives where the farmers, local farmers, would come together, sell their milk, and they would make cheese. Rogue Creamery has kind of gone a step farther. They're what's called a B Corp, which is kind of like being organic or being biodynamic for a company, if that makes sense. So if you're a company and you care about the environment, and you care about your carbon footprint, and you care about what you do with your employees and how much waste you produce, what your emissions are, you can actually fill out you take a test with the B Corp company, and you get validated as a B Corp. So it's not like they're a charity; they are a for-profit company, but they've gone way, way, way out of their way to be sustainable manufacturing, to take extra great care of their animals, to solar, recyclables, and just super hippie Oregon.
Well,
farmers.
The B stands for biodynamic.
There you go.
and biodynamic is its own breed of organic. It was really founded by a German gentleman, Steiner, and Mr. Steiner really thought to think of really the winery or the farm really to be an organism, and that everything that is created in that farm gets recycled into being a future part of the farm. And therefore they believe that when they do this, that you use less pesticides, you don't bring things into the organism that don't need to be in there. So you don't use pesticides, you don't use a lot of
antibiotics in your milk.
Antibiotics and things to do this. And this goes there. And so when they see this bee farming here, they're really talking about taking advantage of what nature is bringing you. And they use, less pesticides on the
cows.
On the for example, in the vineyards, they're going to use less pesticides on the
control bugs or
the weeds that are growing in there, and you need less control of the weeds because you're using more of the natural things that are in there. And they really get into things of planting to cycles, kind of using the Farmer's Almanac, kind of thinking, and really doing that, and
For
stirring
the
a
winers.
wort that was created on the premises and spraying your vines with this naturally created wort or this mixture, liquid mixture, and that lessens the undesirable pests that are in the system, and then so it is a really ultimate hippie way of thinking.
Hippie
of
way of
things.
farming. So this,
Quick question. So now
question from the
Smoky
audience.
Blue, I noticed it too, but I think I know why. It's a little wet. When I opened it, is it because of the plastic that they sealed it in?
I don't know. So there was plastic
No,
inside the wrap.
it's a moist cheese.
It is a moist cheese. You know, it's not very blue-like, but it is really delicious.
Yeah.
It is tangy, and it just goes
That is
absolutely.
for the most part, what you're seeing is actually fats kind of coming out
Yeah.
of the cheese and glistening on the surface. So.
Yeah, that is not your Danish
Mario.
blue, and that is not your.
I'm gonna borrow a napkin so I don't
it's-
lick my fingers here.
I know it's really stunning, Tracy, and not very blue-like, but it is the smokiness is very subtle, and I think it's one of those
There you go.
cheeses that would go really. It goes with this cab
Yeah.
too, so it was a great match, and I think. But yes, it is. I could see it does. It does have a sheen on
It
it,
was moist when I took out
It was
the
moist.
plastic, but yeah, it is sheeny now.
but it's
for the
new.
most part, whoever got the packages liked it. They really
There you
liked
go.
it.
Okay.
And if you noticed in that the video at the beginning of the program, it was showing the Grafton and the cheddaring of the cheese there in Vermont to these cheeses, and you saw a nice drain of liquid coming out of there. And so they're pressing these cheeses to get more flavor in them, but you also see this moisture coming out while they're doing this. And so here would be a case where they're not draining as much. They're letting that liquid in the milk transformation into cheese take place, and so they're not draining off as much liquid, and therefore they're letting that liquid create more complexity in there. So that's their method of creating a blue cheese and creating the nuances that we're getting in that blue cheese.
That smokiness is
No.
very subtle. That's only at the very end do I get really those
hazelnuts.
flavors.
Hazelnuts.
Yeah.
Smoke. They use hazelnut shells because again, reusing product. There's a lot of hazelnut farms. They shell the hazelnuts and then they use those to generate the smoke. So again, Rogue Creamery, even though they're a large outfit, don't be afraid. They are doing their part to not only bring us great cheeses, but also to help the world. Mm-hmm. So as you think about this Vina
and beer,
and that's true. So as you think about this Vina Robles, now we're on the Sartori. Briefly, this Sartori is from Wisconsin. Again, another family-owned but relatively large cheesery. They started in like 1926. They're on their fourth generation of families. Again, kind of geared around the Wisconsin farmer co-op. They work with a lot of local farmers. This cheese, the BellaVitano, it starts with the BellaVitano, which starts to be made kind of like a Parmesan. They don't age it as long, but that BellaVitano is actually all of these cheeses are multiple gold medal winners at the American Cheese Society, the International Cheese Society, for multiple years. So these have got a long track record of excellence. So just because you see them in the store doesn't mean that they're not like well-regarded cheeses. But this BellaVitano starts with that kind of Parmesan style. And then this one, they don't age as long. This one, they do wash in Merlot. We picked that one because we're doing some wine, and we thought, again, it would go good with the wines, and I think it goes great with this Vina Robles from Paso Robles. Then there's your cheeses for the
and
night.
if you're looking for the meaning behind BellaVitano, you don't need to, because it is merely a marketing term. It is a copyrighted word that
It's their daughter's name.
It's their daughter's
From
name.
Bella, from Generation 2. And then
I see.
Vitano, I think, I'm not sure what Vitano means, but
We've got the nice copyrighted right after that
it's
word. Meaning that don't try to copy this word without talking to us.
it's Jamie Vitano.
Tracy.
Where did the 93 points come from for this one?
I can't remember. You have to check the website. It was either James Suckling. This one had several ratings. wine enthusiasts. I think James Suckling might have been one of them. But this one was actually, it may have been Wine Enthusiast because Wine Enthusiast gave this an editor's choice, and they gave it a really high rating. I can't remember.
Was there a rating for the Zen?
Rating for the Zen, I think, was about like a 92.
Yes, that's also got a rating. I don't know. It may have been James Suckling. So I think everything, not the white didn't have a rating we had tonight, but the other two.
Check the listing on our website when you're reordering it.
Yes, and I think if you
as you reorder, it'll tell you what the rating.
Yeah, or do a quick search, and I think it'll come up as one of the publications, either magazine print publication or a lot of these editor or ex-editors have their own online publications, and you'll do it. So
there you go. But I don't know this Vina Robles. I just look at that picture, and I want to live there. I mean, that is an awesome view. So, but anyway, we're at Paso Robles. So we're on the Central Coast, California. We're halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. So as you can see on the chart, Los Angeles is, if you want to make this trip, and it's a great trip to do. You fly into Los Angeles, you drive up through Santa Barbara and have like the sideways Pinot Noirs. You get up to Paso Robles and you enjoy the Rhone varietals that are typically grown up there. But it's more and more they're figuring out the places where cab grows. And there are some amazing cabs coming out of Paso Robles that I think are helping me find a replacement for some of those $200 Napa cabs that I can't afford anymore. So I like this one for that.
This is really delicious. This is Paso Robles has got the right soil and the right climate to make big, ripe, round, kind of opulent style wine. So not as much white wine. This is more of a red wine area, maybe.
White wines are predominantly Rhone varietal. So that Roussanne, Marsanne, you'll find a lot of Rhone whites that are really pretty excellent. But warm weather, Rhone is in general a little warmer than a lot of the other parts of France. Paso is in general a little warmer than a lot of these areas. It's just, even though it's farther north, it's blocked by the mountains. It's kind of down the valley, so it does get pretty warm in the valley there.
And again, this is a very trendy area for the wine industry right now. Everybody is extolling the virtues of Paso Robles, and so in establishing Paso Robles, they didn't just go out to a place where nobody lived and decided that we're going to start a new kind of area here. We're going to use traditional practices, and we're just going to make our living growing Cabernet or growing Viognier or growing these wines. They take what nature can give them in this area. So in this area, it is a good, what we call a microclimate. And so in this microclimate, it does get warm. It's further south, closer to the equator. And so it makes sense that the Cabernet would thrive in this warmer climate. So I think the thing that comes out to me in these Cabernets that come from this area of Paso Robles is more of a dustiness, more in the tannins in this area. You get more of a dusty kind of quality to that aftertaste in your mouth and things like that. And I think that's kind of typical of that area of what we're looking at as kind of a bellwether for that area of the characteristics.
I think they're starting to get the complexity that maybe some other cabs that are produced in other parts of the state are noted for, like Napa and Sonoma and some other spots. So
I think
you're starting to get that. You're starting to get, layers of fruit, not just forward fruit that maybe has nothing behind it. So. And also, this is I think it's a really modest price wine. I have to look.
Super modest price.
So I think, although I know we love our Franciscan cabs and we like our other things from Napa and Sonoma, I think this is much less than those.
And we've had a good run of them because we've had Dow the cab. I don't remember which tasting we did it. You did it at a dinner. I know we've done is a Paso Robles cab, which is amazeballs. This one is also really pretty tasty. The Justin Isosceles we've had is a little more expensive, but it is awesome. Even Justin's base cab is really good.
And guys, you're forgetting last week we did a Pure Paso.
Oh, a couple weeks ago. That was the J. Lore Pure Paso.
And that was more of a blended red where they were just calling up Pure Paso, highlighting the area and not that it was Cabernet Sauvignon dominant.
Right, it had a little bit of Syrah in it to kind of really ripen it out. But yes, that was a cab-driven wine, and J. Lore does beautiful Cabernets too. So this Cabernet can, it does. It's starting to make a real statement. I think.
And I do think we need a good replacement for Napa Cab. So not to get off on a rant here, but Dave, you and I, we were in Napa a year ago.
I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, and we drank some amazing wines that you could spend an amazing amount of money on. And everybody in Napa has gotten more expensive, so it's getting harder and harder to find a really great deal on a Napa cab. Yeah. And so coming off of that, I said I really need to find a replacement for those wines, and I think this is kind of it, because I think this, again, for Memorial Day and for a cookout, I don't know if I really want, a big the Napa cabs tend to have a lot more structure and a lot more tannins, which is great. If you're sitting down with a knife and fork and enjoying a steak, that's exactly what I want.
Dining room, yes.
If you're out on the porch and you've got something in your hand, I would say this would be more what I'm looking for to wash that down.
Or if your company is wonderful company, but they're maybe not wine people.
Also a good point.
And so we've got the affordability of these Paso Cabernets, but we all know that is this a $35, $40 Cabernet night or afternoon, or is this I need something a little bit more universal, a little bit more affordable that we can put out there. I mean, and there again, Cabernet is not for everybody. I mean, it's not. It's got a lot of.
And here's your 93 points Editor's Choice wine enthusiast.
So I do think that any cab aficionado, taking the circumstance, but being a casual, that would certainly work for.
Who keeps putting these closed bottles
on
this table?
I have no idea.
This has been
I say.
This is 20 months in barrel, so which is a long time. Well, not a long time, because most times it's 16, 18 months at the minimum, especially for wines like this. So they left us in oak a little bit longer, 20 months. I don't know that you always see that,
and also a good rule of thumb when you're seeing wines.
I'm going to revisit that. Can I come back to table two?
Why don't you just take a little bit more? So when you're evaluating red wines, it's always going to be about 2 years after the vintage, because if we remember in our basic, I think our first episode that we were talking about, all grape juice is white, and so for red wine to get to be red wine, it needs to sit with those red skins for a while. That takes time to come into balance, and therefore this process, in a general rule, is about 2 years. So very rarely, we're in the year 2000 right now, and you're seeing 2018 Cabernets or Pinot Noirs and anything, because it just takes time for the wines to come together and create a more marketable product. Now, there are certain people, Camus has come out with their 2019 Cabernet already, which is fresh Cabernet, which is
born on date,
is a $70 to $80 bottle, and that's a little bit much for me, and so, but this is very well aged here, and
the tannins and the acidity is just at the right point.
Yeah,
you want enough acidity to give the wine a little bit of longevity. Also tannins, but so the tannins and the acidity should be, if you want a wine to be really long-lived, that's going to predominate early on is acidity and tannins. Those would recede over a period of years, and the fruit finally comes out. What the modern winemakers have figured out is to tweak that so that You have enough acidity and enough tannin to give it structure to start with, but the fruit is the main thing, and that really the California wine producers taught the rest of the world how to do that. I think Europe, even still in the 70s and 80s, was still, making wines in this more austere, long-term style, and so you would have to wait for 20 years to let your Bordeaux develop on a great year, or your Barolo from Italy. Well, California, through technology, they decided, they had a lot of more ripe fruit to work with anyway, and then they decided, this is it. Not everybody can have a cellar, not everybody can go to Burns, not everybody can do all that. We need wines that are more accessible at an earlier stage, and that's what we have right here.
And if you've noticed is that California has not accented the year ratings in wines because, especially in Napa and Sonoma and areas like that, they found stable climates, and they've also found that ways in fermentation and things like this to produce wines that are sellable and without a lot of aging. And so you don't see, especially like in Napa wine, saying, we suggest that you let this wine age for 5 years before you try it. No. They're ready after 2 years to drink. They're ready to sell it to you. They're ready for you to drink it because they've got more to make and sell you in the next year.
So I think this one's really great.
Yeah, it really is. And this area is really, I think, kind of, when you're in the central part of the state like this, you're not as susceptible to weather or to drought or to, late springs and, early falls. Whereas Napa and Sonoma, that area of the wine country north of San Francisco, you're still, that is a little more weather sensitive, I think, than this area here. So
there you go. So another nice little family-owned winery. I think these are they're actually Swiss, but we don't hold that against them. But we're neutral on that topic. Whether or not that was a pun, a joke. Anyway, so we're kind of at the end of our all-American lineup, and I think this was really great. All these wines were really good. It's good to see some good representation of what America can do. Same with the cheeses. These cheeses were amazing.
They were delicious, and they were very interchangeable. That Sartori Merlot, that did have a little crunch to it.
Yep.
That was really, really excellent. I think you could have that.
So what do we have coming up? We've got next week.
Next week, we're going to do the Mediterranean experience.
Yep, drinking the Mediterranean lifestyle. I think that's going to be it. Yes. So,
and what we mean by that is that we're going to try a Cabernet from the eastern part of Spain from the Barcelona area, and we're also going to do a white wine that comes from the Greek Isles, and experience that. That's going to be one of those ultra refreshing kind of wines that we're not used to in America, but we better get used to them now because they are really refreshing, really good. And then we're going to finish up with an Italian.
We're going to do something from Sicily. There's a grape that grows down in Sicily called Nero di Avola, which really just grows there. It doesn't grow commercially prolifically anywhere else in Italy. So we'll stay on the southern latitudes of the Mediterranean, and Greek white wine, Esoterico is a great varietal. So go to Sicily and then end up in Barcelona.
A little Mediterranean, or as I like to say, the Tampa-Terranean, because we've got this Tampa-Terranean lifestyle here with our grouper and our snapper and our Gulf shrimp.
Yes.
And we take our walks until the temperature gets too hot. Question from the audience.
I'm going to explore that area.
The last cheese, is it okay to eat that rind?
It is.
Yes, I think
it is. I don't believe it's.
You can totally eat it. Yes.
You can totally eat it. I don't think there's wax on it. If there's wax on it,
wax? I thought it was wax, but maybe not.
I don't know what it is.
Wax, okay.
It's very subtle.
I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat it on camera. I'm going to eat it on camera. If that's.
Yeah, it was.
That's how you're going to get your Merlot flavor is to eat. Go ahead,
yeah.
Believe me, I'm not a big wax cheese person, but that you can eat. I'm not thick.
It's not going to hurt you. So what?
It's kind of like the drunken to goat. This is the other reason. Now I'm looking at the camera feed and I'm seeing what I look like chewing, and I'm realizing this is why I don't eat cheese on camera.
Right. So we did it this week. You may not see that again. So
yeah, there you go.
I know. Because
But hey, those tasting kits for next week are already up on the website. We don't have all of the wines in, so whenever you go out there, they will show up as on back ordered. But as usual, you can go ahead and order them now, and they'll be available for pickup probably after Wednesday.
Yeah, on Wednesday for the wine and the cheese probably. So we're still tweaking the cheese. I think we have 2 out of 3, but there's a third one we thought we could do and we can't. So. But yes, it's up there. So order the kits, and I think we're better about that than we have been. So we had these kits for late in the week. So thanks for your patience on all of that, and just go ahead and order them. And we'll send out an APB if
there's any
there's
issues.
a problem with them.
So guys, enjoy your all-American weekend.
Yes, your long holiday weekend. Thanks for everything, everyone. We enjoyed being with you. And
enjoy your extra day off.
Oh, yes.
I've got one other announcement. One last emergency announcement is happy birthday to Kathy Clark, who's watching out there from Zephyr Hills. Kathy's my mom.
Kathy's your mom.
I drove her out a tasting pack. She's been very good about not getting on the comments and saying, "That's my baby." So thanks, Mom. Happy birthday.
Cheers to Kathy.
Cheers to Kathy.
Cheers to Kathy.
Many more.
The other people having birthdays.
There you go. Yep. And to everybody else, enjoy your Memorial Day.
Enjoy your Memorial Day.
We appreciate the support a lot. Remember to like the video, share it on your timelines, forward it to your friends. We appreciate the support.
Yeah.
So, cheers.
See you all next week, if not before. Cheers.
Ching. Ching, ching.